Good morning. What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Actually Good Coffee podcast. I slept weird last night and my neck is killing me. Today I'm going to talk about 3 things that I've learned in the past year of owning a coffee roasting business. I did a similar episode last year, so at the end of this episode, I'm actually going to follow up on those lessons and see if they still hold today. Keep in mind, this will be my 3rd year of co-owning and operating Made in Coffee Roasters. There are going to be other things I learn as the years go on. Some may even contradict with what I'm going to be talking about today. So if you are looking to take the first step into your entrepreneurial career, or maybe you're a 20-year veteran looking to prove me wrong, then this episode is for you. So let's get started with the first lesson that I've learned, which is all about efficiency. Alyssa and I had a baby this past year, and it has been quite the life-altering experience, but we were lucky in the sense that we were already living what most people would consider a boring lifestyle. Alyssa and I were constantly working on Maiden. I had just finished working at a local bar and nightclub for the past 7 years, and Alyssa had just finished working as a manager at a local cocktail lounge for a few years. So we both had zero interest in going out on the weekends and partying. Regardless, we still had to make a lot of changes to our lifestyle. Our son became our priority in life. I know some people will say, oh, well, my business is my baby, but guess what? Your business doesn't scream cry for 3 months straight and then wake you up another 2 to 4 times a night for the next year. There's also no emotional connection to your business, or at least there shouldn't be. And with a child, it's instinctual, especially when you're running off of 4 hours of sleep. You're also going to never get back the lost time with your child. So I've talked about this before, but now holidays are important. Birthdays are a big deal, and family events overall just have a lot more weight to them. This forces you to make sure you are making the most out of your time. And I've become a lot more efficient with my time than I was in the past. I'm still not where I would like to be, but I would absolutely attribute my recent boost in productivity to having a baby. So life hack, if you want to be more efficient with your time, just have a baby. I'd also attribute this boost in efficiency to the fact that my humanity has been more at the forefront of my mind lately. My understanding of how much time I have left on the earth has come into play so much more than it has before, which has helped me have an appreciation for everything around me. So another life hack, if you want to be more efficient, think about death. The last thing I want to mention before moving on to the second lesson is that work is still very important to me. It's still a major part of my life and will stay that way. My reasonings for why I do it have just changed. The second thing that I've learned this year is the importance of SOPs, or standard operating procedures, baby. And before you fall asleep from that boring term, let me just say this is something that might take a few years for you to get, but it's a lesson that you wish you had learned earlier once you're 10 years into your journey. Everything that you do, create a standard operating procedure, okay? So I will give you an example because the first thing I talked about was a little bit intangible. When I first started roasting coffee, everything was based off of feeling or instinct. I use those words a lot. But, and this is why I say it might take a few years for you to understand, after a while you begin to realize the workflow and actionable steps there are to roasting coffee. So step 1 is to clean the roaster. You scrape the walls, vacuum the chaff, but what happens if the vacuum bag is full? Throw it out, and then grab another vacuum bag on this shelf right here. What happens if there's no more vacuum bags? Order them off of Amazon using this link right here. Okay, but when do we do a deep clean on the roaster? It's when we go through X amount of roasts, or go through X amount of time. These are the things that you'll run into, and the more detail that you can provide, the easier it will be to onboard a new employee. Next, you warm up the roaster to 475 degrees, but you want to keep it at 475 degrees until you see the actual drum temperature gets there as well, because your first few roasts will be too cold if you start too early, right? Because there's multiple temperature readings that you need to keep track of. Okay, now what happens if there's a fire? How do I cool the roaster down? What's the breakdown procedure? When do I know when I need to place a new order for green coffee? When are we getting too low? Now, what about a cupping protocol? What are the ratios that we use? All of these things are going to be problems that you run into, and if you can create an onboarding procedure that doesn't require you to actually be there to answer the questions, then you can start what's called working on the business rather than in the business. Before I say where I learned this from, I just want to say that this might seem very not important for you right now because you just want to understand what it is, but whatever you need to do, whether it's keeping a written record of all the steps that you take while you're going through it, do it earlier rather than later. You will be thanking yourself, I promise you. Back to this idea of working on the business rather than in the business. This is a lesson that I learned from the book The E-Myth, and this is actually a nice segue into the third and final lesson that I've learned this year, which is that if you want to be a good boss or leader, you always have to be learning. Now, as most of you have probably picked up on by now, I did not go to college, but if you didn't, it's because lately I've been reading books. And when you're starting your business, the best advice would be to jump in head first and surround yourself with it. At least for me, that's what it was. But after a few years or so, I got to the point where I realized I was running into similar problems, just in different ways. And the solutions that I came up with were only temporary. They still kept coming back. Eventually, I got to the point where I just needed to figure out a way to resolve these problems using a more effective method. I'll lay this one out for you guys so I can be as clear as possible. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So there's this thing called the Eisenhower matrix, another sleepy term, I know. It's a time management tool that describes 4 categories of where people spend their time. The first is what's called important and urgent. The second is important but not urgent. The third is not important but urgent. And the fourth is not important and not urgent. When you start your business, you're constantly doing the things that are both important and urgent, right? Because it's only you. You don't have really any time to do anything else. But as you grow and you start hiring people and putting them in the right place, you want to get to the category of important but not urgent, okay? This is like changing your oil in your car. It's something that you know you're going to have to do eventually, and the earlier you can do it, the better. But you don't want those problems to get to the point where they are both important and urgent, okay? This is like your flow state. This is where you want to live as a business owner. And the way that you move to important but not urgent is by hiring the right people and setting up standard operating procedures so that you can be more efficient with your time. Boom. Look at that. I just wrapped it up with a nice bow. Perfect for the holidays. Now, for reviewing last year's lessons, and I'll leave a link to the description to that episode if you want to listen to it too. The first lesson was maintenance and being your own handyman. The example I used was when our roaster's motor died and I thought I was going to have to declare bankruptcy because I couldn't fix it and I couldn't afford to bring somebody out to do it. This one definitely holds up for any newbies out there. However, if you are more experienced in your field and your time is more valuable spent somewhere else, then being your own handyman may not be the best option for you, right? Like for me, this one definitely was important because I just grew up with a background of not really solving any of my problems. It was more just like paying somebody to do it. But now it's getting to the point where spending the time on these tasks might not be the right move. So I'm just going to leave this one up to you guys. Basically, what you need to do is calculate the value of your time and figure out whether or not it is better spent somewhere else, like in sales. And be as honest as possible with yourself. The more you exaggerate, the more you will be hurting yourself in the end. The next lesson from last year was around distribution or travel. So at the time, I was using an employee to do deliveries to save money, as well as utilizing UPS. Now, we use a third-party shipping provider that gets us a decent rate on our shipments and doesn't require an employee to drive out each day. This one holds up in a similar fashion. It's just not valuing your own time, it's valuing the time of your employees. If it makes more sense for your business to send somebody out to do deliveries rather than utilizing a shipping provider, great. The only thing I'll say is to make sure you exhaust your options if you have the time to do so. Sometimes it's just easier to have another company handle this aspect of the business for you. The last lesson was quality control and how your product is everything. I will stand by this lesson and will fight tooth and nail for it. If you have the best coffee, food, whatever it is that you sell, people will come from all over the world just to try it. Marketing can only get you so far. You may see a temporary boost in your sales, but if your product or service is garbage, you are wasting money. Focus on what it is that you offer. What makes you unique? If your coffee is dialed in, figure out what else you can be doing. Is it brew guides? Is it subscription benefits? Is it an affiliate program? Is it a tech department? Is it education? Is it training? Figure out what it is that you need to do that will hone in your offering so that you can be a benefit to your customers. Don't just stop and then shift your focus. Work on your product so much to where it brings in the additional capital to then invest it into your marketing. Stop trying to do everything and get so caught up in what everyone else is doing. Keep sharpening your tools so that instead of taking 20 swings of the axe to cut down the tree, you only need to take one. I really think this is where people give up too easily and will not play the long game because it's just too hard. Like, it is so easy to get caught up in other people's marketing. I actually just talked about this in our latest newsletter, but I'll do a more in-depth talk on it now. About a week ago, I was looking at different brands' websites and marketing and thinking to myself, why do we not have this? I was just getting frustrated that we don't have the 15 grand needed to redesign our website or pay a marketing agency to run our ads. And my wife, Alyssa, caught on, and when I shared my frustrations with her, she immediately went to their About section and pulled up the owner's resume. 8 years of head roasting experience, 6 years as a head roaster, 13 years involved in coffee, and a hefty resume of accolades. Myself, 3 years in all categories. I'm not saying these years of experience automatically translate over into more revenue, but what I am saying is that the 27 years of experience total granted the owner the insight needed to figure out what it was that the company's client base was interested in, and they honed in on it so much so that it converted into the capital needed to reinvest that money back into their advertising and marketing. A website alone will only get you so far. You have to have a good product. That's it for today's episode. I want to thank you all for another incredible year. This has been a really challenging one. 2025 with the 50-year high historic green coffee prices. So I just want to thank all of our wholesale clients, all of you who buy our coffee online, everybody that works under Maiden, all of you that listen to this podcast. Use code AGCP when checking out if you're going to place an order at maidencoffee.com. This is just a little thank you that I want to give all of you that listen to this show. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday, and I will talk to you all again very soon.